Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Red Donkey Projections. My name is Lucas, and I have Eric here as always.
Hey guys.
And today we'll be taking a look at our 2020 Senate election predictions. We'll be going state by state, and we will be predicting who will win the Senate in 2020. And with that being said, let's get right into it. So let's start off by putting out all the safe Democratic states. Most of these states don't need much talking. Oregon, most of the East Coast, with the exception of Maine. New Hampshire, we are putting now as safe. Gene Shaheen is doing relatively well in the polls, and the Republicans have not put that good of candidates up here. So we're putting this one as safe from now on. We thought it might be a little bit competitive, but clearly not that much. Minnesota, Tina Smith's seat. We do think this will be safe here. And I believe that is it for all these safe states. Oh, Dick Durbin in the state of Illinois, the minority whip. So we are going to put that one as safe as well. Let's go through all of our safe Republican states now. Wyoming. We have a retiree here, but this will probably still go Republican. One of the most conservative states in the Union. South Dakota, Nebraska, Oklahoma, for the most part, the West. We'll skip a few. I also forgot New Mexico. Sorry about that. Tennessee, we have a retiree, but we're not going to see a Phil Bredston candidate to make it close. Or 10 points isn't close, but closer than usual. See, West Virginia, again, one of the most conservative states in the Union. And I believe that is it for all the safe Republican states. Let's now go through all the likely states now. Let's start off with the big one right off the bat.
You forgot Idaho.
Oh, Idaho. Sorry about that. Kansas. This is the biggest one. Let's start without this one first.
We have been last night actually, and Lucas can go into that later.
Yep. So we did live stream last night, the 2020 election primaries. You can watch our live stream. We saw that Roger Marshall defeated Chris Kobach in the Republican primary. It was a pretty big surprise for us. We thought Kobach would do a lot better than how he did. As a result, the chances of Barbara Boyer winning the Senate seat has decreased dramatically. She is a solid candidate. She was a former Republican. That might be good for her in this state, but she's against Roger Marshall, who does not have that much baggage against him, and he's nowhere near as popular as Chris Kobach. So for that reason, we are putting the state of Kansas now as likely. We don't think that Boyer has that much of a shot anymore. If Chris Kobach won, would have had a better chance here, but he did not. Let's now head to more likely states. South Carolina. Let's look at the polls here. This is Jamie Harrison versus Lindsey Graham, very well-known figure. So according to the polls, actually, Graham is not up by that much. However, we are going to put this one as likely still because of how Republican the state of South Carolina has not voted Democratic in a very long time. So we're going to put this one as likely Republican. We are moving that from safe to likely.
Yeah. Also, South Carolina has a pretty conservative electorate, and Lindsey Graham is an incumbent, and that provides him an advantage. He's pretty well known as well.
He is very well known. All right. Let's now head to another likely state, Kentucky. Mitch McConnell, very, very unpopular, the second most unpopular senator in the United States. Is against Amy McGrath. She has some recognition from when she ran for Congress in the state of Kentucky, House of Representatives. She still lost that race. She is fundraising relatively well, but this is Mitch McConnell, the majority leader. He has a lot of name recognition, and Kentucky is very conservative. We don't think this race will be competitive at all. Let's also look at more likely states. I just realized I forgot to put Virginia as safe. That should be safe. Apologies about that. Let's look at more likely states. Mississippi, Clyde Smith versus Mike Espy. This was very close in 2016. We could see a little bit of that, although I do think it will be definitely a wider margin. Mississippi does have a pretty large African-American electorate. We could see higher turnout here due to the Black Lives Matter movement, but we are going to put this one as likely still.
Smith is the incumbent, so that
yeah,
is
Smith is that is helpful. Eric, why don't you discuss Alabama?
Yep. So this is another likely state. For the Republican Party, we have Tommy Tuberville, who has been confirmed as the Republican nominee through the primaries. He is against incumbent Democrat Doug Jones. That was a once-in-a-lifetime thing, though, because the opponent Doug Jones was up against, Roy Moore, had a lot of allegations against him, so he was not elected, and Doug Jones was. We don't have that type of Roy Moore candidate anymore. We have Tommy Tuberville, a former football coach who actually was endorsed by Donald Trump. We don't think that Doug Jones can maintain the seat despite him being funded a lot by the Democrats. Alabama just has a conservative electorate, and the Republican candidate is no Roy Moore.
Yeah, exactly. And even though it was Roy Moore in 2017, it was still barely won by Doug Jones. It's like 2 points. It was very narrow. For those reasons, we are going to put this state as likely. It is in between likely and safe. Let's just put it at that. Another likely Republican state Senate race is Georgia Special. We actually did make a mistake in our last episode. We apologize. Georgia Special does not have primaries. Instead, they have a jungle election, and the top two candidates, if no candidate reaches over 50%, they head into a runoff election. So potentially we could see we do think that Doug Collins will probably be winning this Senate seat. He's looking very good in the polls right now. Kelly Loeffler did have an insider trading scandal. We don't think that she will make it to the top two, or she might, but we still think Doug Collins will still win, and they will continue to retain this seat as being a Republican seat. No surprise here. We're going to actually now head to our likely states for the Democrats. But first, let's touch on Alaska. Alaska, polls have shown the race being surprisingly close. There are, I believe, quite a few independent voters, undecided voters. Sullivan is trailing behind in some polls, but I believe Eric said that in a recent poll, we did see plus 13. So we are going to consider moving this one to safe, but right now we're going to keep this one as likely at the moment. Another likely Democratic state now. Let's first head to Colorado. John Hickenlooper versus Cory Gardner. Hickenlooper was a very popular governor before his term ended recently. And since the 2014 election, and in general, Colorado has moved to the left a lot. Their electorate has become more and more Democratic. Cory Gardner is currently very unpopular and a staunch Trump ally, which is not good in a pretty Democratic state like the state of Colorado. He was elected in a red wave year. What can we assume from that? Usually when you're elected in a red wave year, you kind of got lucky that a lot of Republicans did well. So we don't think that, at the moment, we don't think that 2020 will be a red wave year for the Republicans. So we do think that the state will be a likely race for John Hickenlooper because he is a former governor, has a lot of name recognition. He even ran for president in 2020, dropped out pretty early, but he's a well-known candidate that we do think will defeat incumbent Cory Gardner. Let's also now, let's head to Michigan first.
Yep.
Personally, I'm about to put this one as safe, but we're going to keep this one as likely for now because polling does show, Peters is up by a decent margin, but we're going to keep this one as likely.
Actually.
Plus 12, yeah. Decent, but not yet safe. His opponent is John James. He is known a lot for running in 2018, coming relatively close to defeating the incumbent, but did not win at the end of the day. So we do think that Peters will retain this seat. We're going to now head into one more likely Republican state. Eric, why don't you head to this one? Texas.
Mm-hmm. So the Senate race in Texas isn't that competitive, and it definitely is a lot less competitive than it was in 2018. For context, that was Beto O'Rourke versus Ted Cruz. Beto O'Rourke put a lot of money and effort into this race and still lost by a very narrow margin, but he still lost to Ted Cruz. We don't have this type of situation anymore. We have John Cornyn and the Democrat Hagar, who is running, and she is no better work. She is not campaigning in every single county or fundraising millions and millions of dollars. Polling does show Cornyn up +6. Maybe some outlier polls are a bit lower, but for the Senate race, we do feel like John Cornyn does have it, and Texas is going to be a likely.
I agree with that. Let's also now head to the state of let's start with Arizona here with our lean Democratic states. Now, I'll start off with this one. We have here Mark Kelly versus Martha McSally, who is the incumbent. She is pretty unpopular at the moment. Let me give you guys some context. In 2018, she ran for Senate against Kirsten Sinema, who is the Democrat. Martha McSally actually lost to her. All right, but then following the death of John McCain, Governor Ducey appointed John Keel, I believe that's how you pronounce it, to the seat before he resigned. Now, after he resigned, Governor Ducey of Arizona appointed Martha McSally. That was not a good choice. She lost an election, and you're appointing her to the seat again. So she is pretty unpopular right now. And also, Mark Kelly is this well-known figure, an astronaut, husband of Gabby Giffords, who was a representative from Arizona. And Kelly is up a lot in the polls.
In the most recent one, it was like +18, but that was probably a bit of an outlier. It's probably something a bit less, but Mark Kelly has definitely solidified Arizona.
We are all very close to moving this one to likely. If you see a couple more polls trending in this direction, we will be putting the state of Arizona as a likely. This will be a flip for the Democrats from red to blue. Now, Eric, why don't you head into the state of North Carolina?
Yep, this is our next lean race, I believe. We have decided to move North Carolina to lean. We did actually make a video about Cal Cunningham, the Democrat, up in the state by 11 points. You can go check that out. So we have Tom Tillis, incumbent Republican, elected in a red wave year, and Lucas already explained to you why that happens. And then we have Cal Cunningham. We do believe that the state will be a lean. Cunningham is up in the polls a lot, and we still aren't sure, but people either may down ballot if they vote for Joe Biden, which we think is going to happen in this election. They will down ballot for Cunningham. Maybe something else will happen, but that's just an option. We just think, according to polling and the general counties in North Carolina, we think this is going to be a lean Democratic state. It's somewhere in between lean and tilt, though. It's not a
right. Yeah, and Tillis is very unpopular as well. I believe within the top 10 most unpopular senators in the United States. The Cunningham polls, I think we did see some polls with him up in double digits. We saw him in polls up in high single digits. So we are going to be putting this state as lean. Let's now head to Maine. Interesting race here between Susan Collins and Sarah Gideon. Susan Collins was elected because she was a moderate in 1996. Maine always likes to elect their moderate senators. They have Angus King right now, who is very moderate. Olympia Snowe, also very moderate. And former Senator Cohen, who was also a moderate. So the point there is that Maine likes to elect a lot of moderate senators. And Susan Collins has kind of made some people unhappy because she might be seen as being a little bit too partisan. She voted against convicting President Trump, and she also voted for Brett Kavanaugh, the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh. So keeping that in mind, that's not going to look really that good in her in a state where you want to keep a little bit nonpartisan. Gideon, on the other hand, is a moderate and has a pretty solid experience. She is the current speaker, I believe, of the Maine House of Representatives. That's a pretty solid role to have. Gideon is also up in the polls by 4 to 5 points. Yes, there was an outlier saying Collins was up by 8. We think that is an outlier. So at the end of the day, we do think that Collins will win Gideon will win. Win in lean margin here. Alrighty. Eric, how about you head to the double sleeves?
Yep, let's head to the double Steves. And by the double Steves, Lucas refers to Steve Bullock, the Democrat, and Steve Daines, the Republican, in the state of Montana. So let's give some context here. Steve Bullock, very popular governor. He did run for president in 2020. He did drop out fairly early, but he did have enough time to make himself known. He was one of the most popular and recognized governors at some point. He is term limited and is now running for the Senate. Steve Daines is an incumbent, and he did serve some high political position in the state of Montana. What I do think this prediction is right now, it's a pure toss-up. And only because of recent polling, yes, does lean in favor of Steve Daines. But the state of Montana does tend to split ballot, meaning, yes, they could vote for Donald Trump in the 2020 election, which we have predicted right now. But maybe they would split that vote and decide to vote for Steve Bullock, the Democrat, in the Senate. So we do think that it really, at the moment, could go either way, despite the new Republican polls coming in. But I think this is a pure toss-up. We just don't have enough concrete information to make a fair prediction towards this one side.
I agree. And because, again, this is a popular governor versus a relatively popular senator, I would put this one also as a pure toss-up now, moving it from tilt Democratic now to pure toss-up. Now we're going to head to the state of Georgia regular election. Initially we did have this one as we did put it as lean last time as well. Polls in Georgia, what do we see? Ossoff in recent polls has been losing quite a bit of steam. Purdue is leading in a lot of the recent polls, and I believe they were like A-plus polls by how many points? It was actually it was below 5 points for sure. It was not that much. But we do think that looking at this pattern, if this pattern does seem to continue, we do think that we will also put this one as lean as well, because they were A-plus pollsters. We got to keep that in mind. Ossoff, although he is a pretty good candidate, he is definitely not leading in the polls as he did at one point before 2 weeks ago. So we are putting the state of Georgia as lean now. Eric, why don't you head to our final state of Iowa?
Yep. So in Iowa, we have Joni Ernst, the Republican, and Teresa Greenfield, the Democrat. We did in our last race put Iowa as a tilt Democrat. Leaning tilt D. Tilting. Wait, no. Let me rephrase that. We did put Iowa as tilt D. Right now, I think that's changed because Ernst is leading in the polls and her results are consistent. Iowa is this type of battleground state. Yes, it did vote for Donald Trump, but the Senate race is a lot more competitive than that. Polls are actually back and forth, but just now did Joni Ernst kind of retain her lead. So I also really can't make a decision on the state along with Montana. I think it's best to leave it as a pure toss-up. Maybe next prediction we will change something.
I agree with that completely. So looking at the map right now, it is a 50-48 split. What happens here? So the Democrats, we do think, will take the majority, and the reason for that is because Joe Biden, we do project, will become the next president of the United States. In the United States, the tie-breaking vote in the Senate is the vice president, who at the moment does look like it might be Kamala Harris, Susan Rice, one of those women. So what would happen is 50-50 tie. The vice president breaks the tie. Joe Biden looks like he's going to win. Looks like it will be a Democratic majority this November. And that's the end of the video for today. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this episode, please hit the like button. If you like our content, please hit subscribe. We'll see you in our next episode tomorrow.
See ya.